Dykes and Rothwell. I was led in that by Sir Neil Fraser.
I remember well.
I suppose if any case attempts a definition of contributory negligence in respect of a machine operator, that's it.
I agree.
Yes, but what does it mean, contributory negligence? Who was mostly to blame? The man who supplied the machine, the man who owns the machine, or the man who operates the machine?
Well, I suppose...
Yes, indeed, suppose. It's a minefield of imponderables. One begins to wonder whether case law can be any guide at all on the subject.
Which is why we felt that if anyone could guide us through it...
Flattery, Mr. Butler, will go a long way with me, but I doubt whether it will come much out with the judge, particularly if we get one who believes that only a bad workman blames his tools. At least in this instance, we were in front of Richards, who has some regard for honest as opposed to merely hard labour.
Well, we're in your hands, Mr. Eliot.
How much has been paid into court?
25,000.
So that's what Grantley Brothers thinks is fair compensation for a crippled man.
According to them, of course, anyone who leaves the guard off only has himself to blame.
But if, as you say, it was common practice to operate these machines without the guard?
Since the accident to my client, the company's been very strict, understandably. Before that, well, we do have a number of witnesses.
In that case, Mr. Butler, you can tell your client that we shall be thinking in terms much closer to 50,000 than 25.
I'll do that, Mr. Eliot. Believe me, it'll be a tonic to him.
At the time of the incident, Miss Robertson was, in my opinion, suffering from a reactive depression arising from the adoption of her own illegitimate child, the impulsive desertion in Borough Park of the second child, and so forth and so forth and so on. I think he means she wasn't herself.
It's a gift. Somebody up there loves you.
Well, it should help in mitigation.
Well, you're not still going to plead guilty, are you?
What else? Facts aren't disputed. She took the child without permission, dumped it in the park, and bolted.
But you can't plead on that, not with this psychiatrist's report. You've got to run on it.
You think so?
No question. Not guilty.
What defense would you suggest?
Automatism.
Automatism.
Automatism. Spontaneous pressure on the brain. Or, if that's too complicated, no intention. The girl was not responsible for her actions. You'll make the law reports. The Lord's too, most likely.
Carving myself a niche in legal history is not my first priority.
Harriet, the field is wide open. There's virtually no case law. And what there is can mean damn nearly anything you choose to make of it.
And damn nearly anything the prosecution choose to make of it, too. No, thank you, James. I am a lawyer, not a gambler.
Are you sure?
What do you mean by that?
Well, the best you can hope for is that you'll get her off with what? 6 months? My way, at least there's the chance of an acquittal.
If I put up some cockeyed defense like automatism and fail to make it stick...
The same judge that would have given her 6 months on a plea of guilty will give her 2 years for wasting his time.
We are talking about an emotionally disturbed girl in prison, not legal nicety.
The more reason to go all out for an acquittal.
The trouble with you, James, is you never know when to settle.
Winning is what I'm paid for.
And judgment is what I'm paid for. That means not sticking my neck out and getting my client's head chopped off.
Harriet, whatever your plea in mitigation, your client will go to prison. She has a previous conviction for which she's still on probation.
If I keep the judge's sympathy by pleading guilty, I've a good chance of getting a suspended sentence.
Not a hope.
You think not? Well, we just have to wait and see, won't we?
Back to what I said before. It's a gamble. It's always a gamble.
Yes? Mr. Eliot. No, I'm afraid he's out just now. Oh, quite soon, I should think. Yeah, I see. Well, can I get him to call you back when he... Oh, just a minute. I think that's him coming in now. Mr. Eliot, it's for you, sir. Well, a Scottish name, didn't quite catch it. Says he's returning your call.
Can I take it in here, but I won't be a second.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hello, Robert. Yes. Yes, hello, how are you? Good. No, I'm fine, yes. And how's Pamela? Good. Yes, well, it is. It's a long time no whatnot. I thought we might do something about it. What? Yes, of course, strictly ulterior. Well, what about the vine? Yes, about 6-ish? Fine. Yes, all right. What? Yes, all right. Yes, see you later then. Yes, bye. Ah. Robert the McGregor.
Oh.
My esteemed opponent in this industrial injuries case. And the man who set out to be the youngest QC since Maxwell Fyfe and failed.
Well, only by 18 months.
He didn't like it.
He's a friend of yours, then?
Of sorts. Once did me the most enormous favour.
Oh.
Married a girlfriend of mine.
Is that a nice film?
Figure eight there.
My God, how tiny. No, Robert, this one's on me. Thank you very much indeed.
Pamela sends her love, by the way.
Ah, and how is she enjoying the squalling brat?
Well, the squalling brat has a sister now, also squalling.
My word. Congratulations. It's a veritable production line.
Well, I think we'll have to go slow for the time being. Pamela still refuses to have a nanny, says it disrupts the natural relationship of mother and child.
Well, she always was a romantic.
Yes.
She missed the agency?
Who could possibly miss the agency? Now, given half a chance, she stayed out in the country all the week. Well, so would I, for that matter, but well, commuting's impossible.
I bought myself a little cottage. It's pretty ramshackle. I've had the builders in for 3 months. However, the address will remain a secret, and I shall not have a telephone.
Ah, the ultimate status symbol, James. A refuge from success. Now, pursue it for all you're worth, and then play hard to get.
Robert, talking shop for a moment, if I may.
You want to discuss money, I dare say.
Yes.
I'm afraid there's no chance we could see our way to upping that offer. 25,000, I'd have thought, was about the ceiling in the circumstances.
Setting aside all the obvious jokes about Scottish thrift, I'm sure even you would hardly call that generous.
Now, wait a minute. Your client knew the risk he was running.
So did the company and turned a blind eye.
Well, I've a notion you won't find that so easy to prove.
Have a damn good try.
I'm sure you will. And good luck to you.
Robert, the assessment of contributory negligence, as you well know,
Is anybody's guess.
that man had a potential working life of 30 years. Well, now he'll never walk more than a few steps without crutches. How is he supposed to bring up a family of 3, cope with a mortgage, constant medical attention?
But the fact remains, he took the guard off that machine. Now, within the obvious limitations, you can stick a pin in a figure, and he'll as likely be right about his compensation as the next man.
And your pin's in at 25.
That's right. You've seen we're listed to appear in front of Briggs.
Yes, it's my first time.
I've had the experience twice. He's variable, can be a cantankerous old devil.
That's what I've heard.
He's a bachelor, lives with his sister in Wimbledon. If she's playing him up, that'll not help your chances of a generous award one bit.
It's marvellous, isn't it? Whatever happened to justice?
Well, at least you still can't buy it.
Well, that's some consolation, I suppose.
Well, of course. But don't let the idea get around. Could cost people like us a lot of money.
Thank you. Ah, Robert. Well, you ready to make me an offer yet?
Not on your life, my boy.
You disappoint me.
That's what I'm here for.
Now, Mr. Butler. How are you, Mr. Graham?
I'll do.
Tell me, Mr. Graham, I recognise some of those faces over there. That's your managing director, I think.
That's right, Kirby.
Yeah.
And the fella sitting next to him with the glasses on, that's our foreman.
Yeah. And the chap with the beard is Bill Stallard.
Don't know him.
He's an engineer. Probably their specialist witness. I've used him myself in the past. But who's the shifty-looking type with his back to us? The one who's talking to the foreman now?
Don't know what the hell he's doing here.
Oh, is he?
The name's Gibbon.
What, is he from the factory?
No, he's a machinist. Leastways he was. I heard he was made up to supervisor a few weeks back.
What, have you no idea where he's here?
Oh, not a clue. I hardly know him.
Does he have any connection with your accident?
No, nothing. In fact, he wasn't even there at the time. He was off sick.
See.
Court will be upstanding.
Peculiar atmosphere in this courtroom, Usher. What's this extraordinary smell?
Mr. Grant, why had you left the guard off your machine on the day of the accident?
It was the usual thing. I always left it off.
Why did you?
Same as everyone else. We none of us used them.
Are you quite sure of that?
Well, there may have been one or two did now and then. But by and large, especially the more experienced men, we just didn't bother.
Why not?
It made the job a lot slower. Wouldn't have been much use anyway.
Did you ever
Just
discuss...
a moment, Mr. Eliot. I'm making a note.
Did you ever discuss the matter with management or with any of their representatives?
With the foreman one time, yes.
And what did he say?
Well, he just said, by rights, we should have 'em on like, but he could see the problem.
Problem?
Aye, slowing you down. What with, well, export orders and so on.
Did any other member of the management know this practice?
All of them, I'd say. I mean, you only had to walk through the shop and you'd see, and there was always somebody about.
Did anyone at any time ever insist that you should obey the strict rules and use the guard?
Never.
Thank you, Mr. Graham.
Do you wish to... Yes, I see you do.
Mr. Morris, since Mr. Graham's accident, what specific instructions have been issued by management about the use of these guards?
Well, they come round every day now and check to see we're using them.
And what specific instructions were issued by management before Mr. Graham's accident?
None whatever. They didn't bother.
Hello, James. How's it going?
Hey, Hart. That's hard to say. We should be finished by tomorrow. My God, though, that Briggs.
Don't have to tell me.
Yes, I know. You've had the experience.
He varies
So I've heard.
between bad and much worse.
Oh, thanks a lot. You on with the Robertson go?
Tomorrow in front of Dunbar.
Well, he's not the easiest to win either.
Well, at least he's more reliable than Briggs.
Lucky for you.
And for my client, I hope.
Harriet, are you going back to Chambers?
Why?
Well, I was wondering if we could have a drink later.
Oh, of course. The vine?
Yes, about 7-ish?
Right.
Ah, Robert.
James,
Oh, sorry, do you know Harriet Peterson, Robert McGregor?
Yes, we have met. Hello.
nice to see you.
Well, I assume you two want to talk, so I'll leave you to it.
All right, Harriet. Well, I'll see you later then.
Bye.
Bye.
Well, Robert, do I hear the rustle of pound notes?
Oh, a modest crinkling. My clients are prepared to go to 30,000.
Yes, I should think so too.
Then you'll accept.
No, you'll have to do better.
It's a fair offer, James.
No. 50,000 would be fair, and your clients can afford it. But in the circumstances, we'll settle for 40.
Now, James, if I were you, and I say this as a friend, I'd settle.
Well, thank you, Robert. But I'm not sufficiently impressed by the look of your star witness for tomorrow. Mr. Gibbon, neither is my client. Neither, I suspect, are you. But we'll think about it. Good night, Robert.
Good night, James.
And you think you can force him up, what, another 5?
Another 10?
40,000? McGregor, he's a shrewd bargainer.
Yes, but if he's willing to offer 30 already.
That's no guarantee he'll up the offer each time you say no.
A couple of more times would do.
Well, you could be right.
You're not convinced?
Oh, you could be right.
Yeah, anyway, the final decision is Bob Graham's if he says settle.
He'll take your advice. You're the expert.
Yeah, though, well, the whole thing's a poker game. McGregor's a very canny player.
And you?
Good enough?
$30,000, eh?
It's a considerable improvement.
What do you think?
Well, they obviously feel your case is holding up much better than they expected. The question is, how much damage can this workmate of yours do? Gibbon?
Workmate of mine? I hardly know the bastard. I'll tell you about Ted Gibbon. He's been with the firm 2 years. Pal of mine knew him at his last place. He got sacked for thieving.
Thieving, Mr. Graham?
Oh, well, not money nor nothing. Little things. Spares, set of hand tools. I know we all do a bit of it now and then, even if it's just a couple of screws, but him... In fact, I wouldn't have been surprised to see him get done again. Instead, what happens? He gets made up to supervisor after only 2 years. And after a conversation with me that he never even had. Now, what does that tell you, Mr. Eliot?
It tells me we don't accept £30,000.
Mr. Eliot, I would have thought by now you have adequately established that Mr. Gibbon did not speak to anyone else of his conversation with the plaintiff, also that there was no witness to that conversation.
I'm glad to hear it, my lord. Now, Mr. Gibbon, you are asking this court to accept your word alone that this conversation took place.
That's right, yes.
Your word as an honest man.
Yes.
Mr. Gibbon, would you care to tell the court why you were dismissed from your previous job as a machine operator with Swan Lund Brothers?
I left. I wasn't dismissed.
Remember, you are on oath, Mr. Gibbon.
If anyone can remember so far back.
With the greatest respect, my lord, it is far from easy to conduct a cross-examination while subject to these constant interruptions from the bench.
particularly, I see, when these interruptions call into question your conduct of that cross-examination.
As the credibility of the plaintiff has been called into account by this witness, I would have thought it only reasonable to examine the witness's own credibility. Now, if I may continue, Mr. Gibbon, were you not promoted to your present rank of supervisor only shortly before my client had commenced his action against this company, and after you had, happily for them, recalled your conversation with him?
Really, Mr. Eliot? Are you suggesting that this witness was bribed by the company with an offer of promotion to perjure himself? I am beginning to wonder whether your vocation is for the law or for purveying the more lurid forms of detective fiction.
And I am beginning to wonder whether in this court I shall have the opportunity of examining the difference.
We have heard a great deal of evidence on both sides of the argument, and I intend summarizing only such part of it as I consider relevant to the central issue of contributory negligence. It may be of some comfort to Mr. Eliot if I say that, in my opinion, the evidence of Mr. Gibbon, together with Mr. Eliot's own strenuous, at times one might almost say frantic efforts to undermine it, have had no bearing on my decision either way. I assess the full amount of damages at £42,000. This will be diminished to £25,000. Is there any payment into court?
£25,000, my lord.
My lord, I would ask that my client only pay the costs up until the date of the payment in.
Mr. Eliot, you can have no objection to that course, can you?
No, my lord.
I must say, Mr. Eliot, having heard of the payment in, it is a matter of regret that this claim was not settled before coming into court.
All stand.
Suspended sentence.
Oh, in spite of the probation order. She's a lucky girl.
I was lucky too. Dunbar's a decent judge. Which reminds me, Mr. Eliot,
Yes, Mr. Eliot.
is he in his room?
Well, he swept straight in from court and straight out again. Among other colourful remarks, some of which took me back years to the NCO's mares, he said he'd be out of touch until midday on Monday.
Oh, one can hardly blame him.
Yeah, well, there's a bit of a problem, really. A brief he should have taken with him. I phoned his flat, but there's no reply.
I know where he'll be, that tumble-down cottage of his. Give it to me, Bill. I'll drop it in.
Oh, you going up there?
I'm meeting Dr. Moody and some friends in Wilcombe. I can make a detour.
I'd be very grateful.
Might even try to cheer him up.
Well, rather you than me.
What a bag full. Christen them all, Briggs.
Sounds like voodoo.
I live in hopes.
These shelves look fit to hold the All England law reports.
The law will not set one clod-hopping boot or a clammy hand in this place. It is a shrine to higher things.
Such as?
You name it, it's higher.
James, aren't you going to appeal?
On what? Briggs found against me on fact. That leaves very little room for manoeuvre. I shouldn't have lost my temper with him. I should have done that to the bastard.
Losing your temper could have been a very clever tactic. If a judge is giving you a hard time and you hit back, he's going to be doubly careful to be fair in summing up. Otherwise, if you do appeal...
Mr. Justice Briggs' horrible face wouldn't be seen for egg, but he was fair, legally, the crafty old sod. He completely sidestepped the issue we fell out on.
Discounting Gibbon's evidence?
Well, at least saying he didn't. There was no way that I could prove him a liar. Anyway, still that poor bastard with a broken back who pays. 23,000 quid. That's what he ended up with. 23,000 quid to last him the rest of his life. And I turned down 30. You always said I never knew when to settle. My God, what a farce! We take people's money, we give advice, we mumble reassuringly about statutes they've never heard of and we only half understand ourselves. And worse than politicians, they make promises and break them. We advertise divine justice and deliver compromise, defeat, disgrace, disaster, bankruptcy. Everything except the one thing we're supposed to be about. Justice. That made me laugh. It's a lottery. A Briggs or a Dunbar. You pays your money and good luck.
All very interesting, James. Now, tell me what's really worrying you.
Harriet, you are marvellous. And you haven't said I told you so. At once.
It was your case, James. You handled it the way you thought best.
Yes, and if you'd been handling it, Bob Graham would be a happier man this weekend.
Not necessarily. Now, if he'd had a different judge...
Do you remember? I once told you I might just chuck it one of these days. On a day like today, when it and I make me feel sick.
Yes, I remember. It was here. When you told me you were thinking of buying the place.
I don't think you believed me, did you?
I don't think I passed an opinion.
What's that?
Present from Bill.
Frankly, I would prefer a heavy cold.
Not when you've seen the fee.
Whatever it is, it's more than I'm worth.
Well, I'll leave it anyway. James, the other reason I came over was to take you out to lunch with Ian and some friends. You like them.
Ah, thank you, Harry. That's very kind of you, but I've got a lot to do. I mean, I've got to do something about these shelves, and there's this painting.
Leave it.
Honestly, I'll be all right.
I just don't want you sitting here brooding on your own.
I promise you I will be all right. Really, I'm used to it. Us bachelors spend...
Darling, I'm back. I put the stuff in the kitchen.
Staff problems. You simply can't get a decent housekeeper.
I hope she's good at painting.
She's a dab Ann with a spot of emulsion. Harriet, thank you for coming. That was very kind.
Part of the service.
I'll read the,
Will you show me around before I go?
Yes, of course. Let's start downstairs. Hey, listen.
Yes?
I found these marvellous local builders.
Really?
They're known for building, but they make terrific tea. Really? No,